of middle class is the surest guarantee to the inclusion of women and the breaking down of those barriers. Look what is happening to China, India, when their economies grow. I happen to have been a diplomat. I went to China in 2002. And I saw work in progress. I saw people moving completely from old women to new modern women. I saw it in my eyes in the 6 years I was in China. And so we are saying, this is important. Let's look at our economy. We need business-friendly statutes and ease of doing business. Let's not say, oh, no, 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 no. The budget, I'm not interested in figures as members of parliament. We need to look and so that we understand what exactly Parliament's job is all about. So I talked about the role of Parliament, and I continue to talk about it because that's where things should change. We need to review those laws and look at all regulations and see that do they matter for women's participation in and attachment of the labor force. It's important we look at that. We need to scrutinize the gaps in enforcement of international, regional, and sub-regional legal instruments that integrate gender equality across the legal codes of African countries. While many countries have ratified various international legal instruments that matter for women's economic empowerment, weaknesses abound in their implementation. I come from Zimbabwe myself. I'm a senator there. We have a very good constitution. It was a people-driven constitution. I was one of those who were in the steering of that people's constitution. People spoke. The provisions in that constitution are wonderful. They talk to 50-50 gender parity across the board. But we still see disparities. That constitution was adopted in 2013. But we still see disparities. So it's all about implementation and enforcement. And as members of parliament, we are saying we are the ones who uphold those constitutions. What are we saying to the executive? What are we saying to the institutions who are actually not implementing and enforcing what is in the constitution? We need, as members of parliament, to accelerate the process for women's land ownership. Do we have that disaggregated data? Which women own which land? And if we have it, are we making sure that it's being implemented? Data actually shows that the best performing countries in terms of access to land recorded only 20% of women owning land. Large gender gaps exist all across the continent. Sadly, policy commitment and implementation performance is also not favoring well. As members of parliament, we need to boost female entrepreneurship through active labor market policies such as entrepreneurship promotion programs and access to finance. Are we doing that? Female entrepreneurs remain at low productivity and low growth sectors all the time. While each country will have different set of constraints, we agree, I'm from SADC, and I know we have different constraints that bind most of us.
And now
a cross-cutting challenge is access to finance.
And now you are rounding up?
Rounding up, yes. So we need to boost that female entrepreneurship. We need to address time poverty, another reason for female entrepreneurs are stuck at low productivity. We need to address early marriage and teenage pregnancies because this is affecting our girl child. This is affecting our youth. Support women's transition to formal wage employment. Support women participation in politics. We need to move together as a group. We will give impact. South Africa Parliament, we want to thank you for organizing this conference. I wish we could continue. We need to continue measuring what we treasure. And then we treasure what we measure. And that can only be done by continuity. We need to continuously, I wish from SADC or from even Africa as a continent, we could have this conference every year. So we bring all the members of parliament together so that they can debate these issues and find out where we are missing out. I want to say we need to also grow domestic capital stock. Let's think about the special economic zones. They've made economies boost because we need to grow the cake. We need to advocate as members of parliament for direct investment. We need a conducive countries, conducive laws which make investors come into our countries. As members of parliament, this is our importance. It's very important that we need to do that. We also need to do oversight on judiciary to see that there's justice and fair play so that the statutes and regulations of economic inclusion on gender-sensitive basis are seen to be realized judicially. Don't leave them. So we also need to look at the laws, international conventions, protocols to make sure that they are domesticated. Because it's not enough we go to these conferences internationally as parliamentarians and we participate and we come home and we sit and we don't check whether what you agreed as a country is now being domesticated. So I know I don't have much time, but I want to say I am very, very grateful to you, Honorable Speaker, and to your team for organizing this conference. Once again, I want to thank you for inviting me to share these ideas with you and carry a lot of things I've learned from you as I go back to all the 15 SADC countries. I want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Mutsangwa. You're coming to the panel now. You'll be sitting right there. Thank you very much. We now move to Mme Yacouba, MP, Directrice de Carnet Adjointe from Niger. Let's welcome her to the podium.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, sisters and brothers. I am Husseini Adizatu, coming from Niger, a minister at President's office. I am in charge at this office in relationship between government and assembly. But I want to check if there is translation because I am going to deliver in French.
Interpreters ready, please. French to English and other languages.
Okay?
Okay.
Can I?
Yes.
Thank you. Honorable députés et chères sœurs de l'Afrique du Sud, je voudrais d'abord commencer par remercier les organisateurs de cette importante rencontre pour nous avoir intéressés à participer. Et parce que, vu tout ce qui s'est passé hier, j'étais sincèrement étonnée que dans le cadre des milieux et d'une région économique de la SADC, que des pays membres de l'ECOWAS puissent être invités.
And for me, it's really a very important exchange because we all have different environment, we do have different realities, and it's very important that all the continent should be considered so that we can share our experience. Thank you for this opportunity. I would like to not take long the time. We're going to come back to all the challenges that are all the same, almost the same when we consider our country that survived different colonialism. We know that all principles of equality, gender equality, the respect, request so that we can be interested with all the population, especially women and men, and the whole youth, because that is going to contribute, of course, to the improvement of well-being of the families, and women should also serve their country at the same level with men. And to consider what can be done for the work of the women and in the environment that is changing every day, and that also make that this debate was done in the international conference. There was a lot of declaration that spoke about rights, but in my country, we are still really at a low level. If I'm here, it's really to salute the representatives that you are, because when I consider the assembly in my country, we don't even have 20% of women. But I think that we went from 1 woman of assembly to 30 women. We are really advanced for us, even if we are still very far off equality in most of our organization. As a vice president of the Socialist International, we fought so that country members of this organization can go beyond and be inscribed in the code of that organization. Because all the constitution of the countries acknowledge that there is equality of chances for the gender. So why should we delay on that issue? It's on that subject that I will talk about, so that the Parliament can do something, so that we can advance on this issue. Because most of our country, we speak on the fact that the poverty has got a feminism face through the whole world, that live with less than $1 as a salary, and 65 women who didn't go to school, who are uneducated. That also call us, because education is the point of the work. Education is not only meant for men. That's why in the contribution that I would like to tell you, I will propose 5% of work on the Parliament. So it's principally to look at first, according to that issue, challenge. The Parliament are the ones who are controlling the governance. They can initiate the text. So we are really important, so that the Parliament should work about the initiation of the law to reduce the gender inequality. Most of our country, we do have texts from colonialism. When I look at the evolution at the level of Niger, we had a movement of women that organized just after the colonization about the power of the public, and in the years of 90s, there was also another associative movement that contributed so that there could be a change about the empowerment, the femme, and it was dedicated of the empowerment of women. I can say that today that we do have most women in all the domain of taking decision. We should see how to, through all those text laws, what are the elements that we should correct. When I speak about correcting the text, the one who spoke before said that in our constitution they are talking about inequality. So it means that somehow we do have laws that we don't look at, and we only multiply those laws, and nothing is being done. That's why the orientation, it's about the equality of chances. You should review all those laws from colonialism so that we should erase them and make advancement about empowering the women. We should take initiative for education of girls. In Niger, we have the age for the marriage of girls that is 12 years, and it's abnormal. It's really creating problems, health problems. And last year, there is 2 years, the government have initiated laws so that we can maintain girls into education till the age of 18 at least. That law that went in assembly was rejected because our parliamentary were afraid of religious, and decided that they should not vote that law. And by chance, the Minister of Education, there is 2 years, today is deputy. So she decided to take again that law and submit to the colleagues so that the next constitution, that law should be considered. Those type of initiative should be taken so that we should make girls to have the same education than boys. They should also be maintained in school so that we can avoid the precocious marriage. Our parliamentary also can work for our status should respect the engagement that they took. Each year, we do have an assembly that make us meet around the SABC. We took engagement, but when we come to our former countries, we always forget about those engagements. Our parliamentary should really assure those engagements so that there will be some advancement and respect the purpose of development. All the purpose that we did agree on the agenda on UN, at least they should be respected. We should also bring the government to take measurement to remove all the hard work that are on the women so that they should enter in the work environment. That is very that is the parliament is adopting. So the parliament should make sure that the budgets at all level so that they can make the work of the women can be easy. And also in the domain of education, protection of teenagers and deputy women. And I think that wherever you are, you should initiate those laws to allow to punish all the domestic violence, even for teenagers at their school. The third thing that we are proposing is to reinforce the leadership of women on the level of politics and develop and capitalize all the experience. Through the studies, we have realized that the level of mobility at the level of parliamentary, it's really high. Women, they don't come back to the sessions, which means that somewhere after they are on their post, their leadership didn't allow for them to come back to maintain on their political path. We think that as long as we are elected, we represent a certain base, and we have to fight to maintain that base and capitalize through experience to do more than one mandate. That's when it's possible to make connection with the sisters that are in the political path, to empower them that there will be a better representation to the next session, to capitalize one or two mandates we should develop through the exchange that we do have with other countries. Just two last word. The fifth one is that we have to look for structures that will accompany of elected women. We do have at the level of Niger one that is being done with one national, and we think that those networks are very important for women to bring their voice beyond their country, to allow them to approach the sisters of other country and to share their experience. And a last aspect through the exchange that we do have today is to constitute an exchange word beyond the different parliaments or international organization that should be, so that women between them should share, so that they should also have men who will encourage them to create a massive team that is a term of contribution, of aspects that we wanted to bring on this podium to share our experience and our means. We should constitute a strong network to bring a very powerful change in our continent. Thank you very much.
Honorable Yacouba, you will agree with me, honorable members and participants, that indeed the inputs that we are receiving are worth being received. We now move to the Honorable Didiza as our last presenter on this topic, who is the House Chair of the National Assembly.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and all the speakers who are in the House and the Vice President of the SADC PF, and all the members who are here, honorable members and delegates. I will give the report of the South African caucus, which met a day before, but on those issues that talks to what should parliaments do. And in this respect, largely women parliamentarians through their structures as women's caucuses or CWP chapters. Having noted the outcome of the Global Gender Gap Report 2016, it was noted that there is a case for closing the gender gap in our societies, particularly in the area of economic participation and incomes. The proposal that was specifically made was that South Africa should undertake an in-depth study on the gender gap as part of its outcomes of its 20-year celebration of the Constitution and the National Council of Provinces. The meeting also noted that the world of work is indeed changing as a result of technological advancement and how the technologies will alter the production systems, communication, and governance. Proposal was therefore made that there is a significant need to break down the structural barriers that impede upon women and girls in accessing equal rights, particularly in the economic sphere. These will require improved access to education and training for women and girls, including upskilling women in areas such as ICT and technology such that women are not displaced by the introduction of such in the workplace. At the same time, it is important to ensure that women are trained to manage their enterprises and on the use of technology as a tool for advancement. It was also proposed that campaigns must be undertaken to ensure that the issue of income inequality and the need for its reversal is kept on the agenda of our society as always. On violence against women, the meeting noted that indeed as a country, we have passed a variety of laws and regulations, but the weakness is on the implementation. There's also a reflection that there is a need to prepare police services through training to ensure that in dealing with such cases of violence against women and girls, they do not further victimize those who have been affected. That there must be alignment within the law enforcement agencies on how to deal with cases of violence against women. Women caucuses or CWP chapters need to work with non-government organizations in order to popularize the relevant laws that deal with gender-based violence, thereby sharing information with women. And we said our constituency offices should actually play that important role of communication and information sharing. There's a need to also work with men as champions in ensuring that they too become part of the solution. There's also a need to highlight the cost of gender-based violence in our economy and society. Here we looked at the reference on the work that was done by KPMG, when they actually looked at how much money is wasted as a result of absenteeism because, somebody has been beaten and therefore cannot be able to go to work, and therefore the loss of production. But secondly, how government wastes a lot of resources in dealing with such cases of violence. So it's not just the societal or individual impact of violence, but it's its cost as well to the economy. The need to work with imbumba yamakhosikazi yakomkhulu, particularly women who are in the royal household either as wives or as aunts, and also chiefs themselves, to ensure that we eliminate customs and traditions that impact negatively on women and also result in gender-based violence in most instances where men actually feel that women are their properties because baba lobolile. We also appreciated that there are laws to address sexual harassment. However, we need, as women parliamentarians, to ensure that there is compliance and that Parliament and our legislatures and corporate companies should develop sexual harassment policies, and such must be made public. So they must be visible so that everybody knows that there are these instruments that seek to support them against sexual harassment. But also that those who have been found to have transgressed must be named and shamed, and consequences must follow. We said as women parliamentarians, as lawmakers, we need to ensure that all legislation that we pass are actually gender sensitive, and that we must encourage more women to participate in lawmaking through public participation. We also said we needed to change the infrastructure as well as the programs of Parliament to ensure that they too are welcoming to women. For instance, the issue, Madam Speaker, that the women said I must appreciate and thank you for is ensuring that even our programming now is going to allow once a month a caucus for women in Parliament, so that party caucuses can take a break, and then women, so that even women in the executive and those who are in the portfolio committees, which meets on Thursday, are able to meet starting tomorrow. So we want to say thank you to that. We also said there's a need to support one another as women. You know, when you come into Parliament, you've never been there before. The institution is just overwhelming, intimidating, very masculine. And you just don't know, when do you say a point of order, whatever. So we said the women caucuses, they must also play a role of nurturing and supporting women who enter Parliament. Yes. But at the same time, we said it is important that women caucuses must have kind of career training so that they can attract young women to say, politics is also our place. We said we needed to increase women's representation in Parliament, but we must also monitor, Madam Speaker, what happens if a woman resigns or is redeployed, so that we don't start with 20 women. By the time the term of office ends, we've got only 6 women, because we actually didn't put our eye on that so that women are not depleted. But we said, as women caucuses, we must engage political parties. Let's ask these political parties from which we come from, what are your policies on women, particularly women representation? Not wait until the end of term, and also ensure that not only changing their constitutions or whatever statute, in the way they select their public representation. So we said we needed to look at retention, so that singaqali ngo 2014 to 2019 with 50 women, we come back 2019, it's only 12. Let's rather increase. So we need to work at a retention strategy. We also said we needed to build an alumni of women since 1994, who started in the Parliament, in our legislatures, and in the local councils, so that those becomes a resource for women going forward. We also said women caucuses / CWP structures must really have a program to prepare women when they exit office. You know, a lot of women, when they exit Parliament or the legislature or councils, most of us go back home, or go back home to our old, professions like being a teacher or a nurse, whereas men, when they calibrate their experience in Parliament, they become board members of Alan Gray, chairperson of Old Mutual. So we said we needed to have a deliberate plan on an exit strategy for women when they leave office. We then said there's also a need for proper funding of caucuses. You know the issue that my colleagues were raising about how we can have exchange programs. Sizawiyenza kanjani, Madam Speaker, without money? I mean, really. But also, even internally, when we want to go and visit the CWP in Gauteng or Eastern Cape, the secretary, Ageku acting secretary here, will tell us there's no money. So we said, as part of we must be part of the budget as women parliamentarians. Not as, I remember when we were talking in the Chief Whips Forum that we were going to have this meeting. Immediately, one of the men colleagues, I won't mention his name, I want to know what is the budget. I said, when it comes to a women's event, the first question is not where is it going to be, what is it going to be dealing with, is how much is the budget. We need to make sure that when we prepare for the budget next year, it must have a budget of its own, a women's caucus. Thank you, Songa. We said there is a need to reinvigorate the gender budget initiatives, so that every budget of Parliament, of all the departments, we ensure that the gender element is adequate. But also, as a last point, we said we needed to monitor and measure the implementation of international and regional instruments that our government adopts and our Parliament adopts on issues that relates to women and gender equality. But as last, we said we needed to take regional and continental campaigns so that we support one another. You know, like the campaign we had on the Chibok girls of Nigeria. The campaign we had in support of the women on Malawi against the hyena. Many other, so that as women in the continent and in the region, we feel the pain of one another. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mme Didiza. Honorable members and esteemed participants, I'm looking at the time, it's now 10 to 11. You've listened to the three panelists that have given us so much to chew and to process. Grow the cake is a very precise, direct, I don't want to say instruction, but I would love to use that word. That says it's a direct instruction to this conference to say you can't talk women participation in an economy that is dwindling. Grow it so that you are able to ensure that as it grows, participation of women also grows. Enforce your laws, implement. You've listened to another instructions that said parliaments must strengthen their arm. Strengthen your role, strengthen accountability, use your power to change women's lives. Make laws, ensure that you monitor their implementation, promote women leadership, enforce education for girls. That was very precise. And the last speaker talks to stakeholder engagement and role player partnerships, especially in dealing with gender-based violence. Use your gender lens in legislation, in budgeting. Ensure that the kind of laws you pass favor the conditions of women and, in fact, change the conditions of women for the better. The role for women caucuses, be they women caucuses or CWPs, is quite cut out clearly. But also work on the attraction, retention, and exit strategy for women leadership. That's what I heard. I'm not sure what you have heard. Now it's time for us to take hands, and let's remind each other that now we are not diagnosing, we are solving. Ne? So as we raise our arms, let us ensure that we start with the proposal. Honorable Didiza, the members from the Eastern Cape, when you were saying you are thanking Speaker for the women caucus timing once a month sitting, they were like, we've been doing it for ages. So they were like saying to me, which means that these sessions help us also learn from each other what works. So we would need those hands to add on the proposals that we've listened to. I think our participants, we must agree that they prepared thoroughly in terms of being direct to the proposals. There's one, you know, when I looked at the house this morning, I said to myself, yo, because you don't know everybody, you would use the colors they are wearing. But when I looked at red and black for the day, I thought to myself, I'm in trouble. There's a hand at the back there with a blue jacket. There's another hand with a white paper, that's 2. There's a hand here, that's 3, right in front of me. I'm taking one hand here, that's 4. Like you see, you are 3 in one corner, and that's 5 for the, that would be 5 for this side. Shall I see if I have time? I will come back to you. There's a red jacket, straight, yes. That's the 5 from the side. I'm going to come back to the 5 of the side. Let's hear the first 5. The blue jacket.
Thank you, Chair.
Don't forget, we introduce ourselves as we are about to speak.
Oh, thank you, Chairperson. My name is Sheila.
Aibo. Aye.
Blue jacket. Yes.
Thank you. Nkosi mama. The name is Xoliswa Xabendlini. I am from the Northern Cape. I am representing those women where the tire hits the tar. So I am the road tail. And I will be excused if I'm out of order, but at least I'll be out of order at the right place, not paphandle. Umama Zulu yesterday mentioned the thing about the entrepreneur. Now, as young women, here's the reality. You earn 6,000 rand at the municipality or any government institution. Treasury decides that when there's a red tape for you, you cannot ufake now and get some of this fat. But now here's the reality. If you earn 6,000 rand as a young woman, the very 6,000 rand, you have responsibilities. By the time you go home, that's your gross. You got 3,000 rand. And again, people say that you can't be empowered. So my proposal, as Mama has said, we must make proposal, is can we look at the bracket, the income bracket, then limit us on that, because you can't compare with me with someone on an income bracket, it is much higher. Then secondly, on the caregivers, as Dr. Kapila has said, Tina, as in the care industry, we are overlooked. You have this woman, because mostly it's young women that work in that industry. You get this young women working in this industry for more than maybe 10 years, unbroken service. The job that we do, it's auxiliary nursing, isn't it? But when they are AMA posts, you do not qualify, but you have been having, and when you look at it, it's even more because now you become the psychiatrist of this home, because when you live down the street.
I don't like doing what I do. I don't like cutting the head. But
okay, Mama, there's a proposal.
Can your background be very limited
And the
focus
preambles.
on the proposal.
The proposal, can't we look at the service? And if a person has more than 10 years unbroken services, and maybe Nina as Omama Parliamentary to assist us, can see accreditation, which is worthy, so that we can, when there are positions, then we can qualify. Then the last one on the economy. Imigalelo, imibuto, I said I am the raw deal. There's this industry that is overlooked now. We are seen as loan sharks, but my proposal to women caucuses, these women need assistance. We need direction. Can we be regulated? Kesibone, how can you tap into this industry to see that Abba Mama, how can we empower them further and not be seen as abagcini isasa cards abantu? Instead, sibathathe and empower them further. I thank you.
Thank you. Number 2, shall you please
Very brief, Chair. Thank you
not
so much.
place me in the
I'll do
predicament?
so. Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. My name is Belinda Peterson, Chair. Thank you very much. Chair, we need a task team to vigorously, robustly push for international recognition on all women's issues. It has to filter down from international to national, provincial, municipality, and then to the local sphere of government. This is not gonna come to us on a silver platter, Chairperson. So we need a task team to push for the women's issues. I thank you.
Thank you. Time-wise, that was very progressive. Number 3.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Nomkita Geisman. I work for the SADC PF, responsible for gender, seconded by South African Parliament. Thank you to the 3 panelists, but I want to comment to the input of the last panelist, trying to recap what Honorable Vice President of SADC PF has said yesterday about the newly adopted SADC PF Youth Development Policy Framework. When you talked about young women, we proposed a quota there that each political party in their deployment list to Parliament should have a certain percentage, about 20% for each political party. And when you deploy also members to SADC PF, out of the 6 members, we need 2 members, 1 male and 1 female, from the young people that have just joined the Parliament. And also, I want to affirm your thinking as South Africa on the engagement of political parties, because we've learned as SADC PF that where the problem is, if you are just talking with the Parliament as a whole, you don't go to the political parties, you miss the boat. And then I wanted to comment about my pet subject, when you said you need, as Parliament, to engage with regional campaigns. And you said you want to engage also men. I know the Parliament of South Africa is one of the parliaments that has already taken up the campaign. The Parliament of Malawi, the Parliament of Zimbabwe, and the Parliament of Angola, the He for She campaign. Its role in each and every parliament. And that's where you also get political parties, that without you as men, please join us in the He for She. Not that we suggested that we wanted to reinvent the wheel or men should take up the roles that are played by women. We just wanted their support and say, let me be counted. South Africa has already launched its He for She campaign. As a result, Madam Speaker is one of the 4 speakers in this region who has been awarded, who received an award during the 41st plenary in Seychelles for launching a successful He for She campaign for South Africa. A critical is, I'm so happy about what you are saying about women's caucuses. We've been fortunate to be invited twice. My speaker is looking at me. We've been invited twice, and South Africa is one of the countries I invited to contribute in a journal by UN, looking at beyond the numbers. Are we making a difference? And you can't talk about making a difference without knowing how much are we talking about in the kitty. And we are struggling to have the actual budget of the parliament. We talked about it with Joy yesterday, because you can't compare how much is given to the women's caucus if you don't know how much is given to the parliament as a whole.
Thank you.
A quick one. What is missing to all the speakers? Yesterday there was a participant who raised a very important issue on sex for jobs, saying we need to look at the underlying cause. And she mentioned one, saying young people are unemployed. What are we doing to address that? And that contributes also to the resolution that was proposed by South Africa to resolution 60/2. It was proposed by Southern Africa region and adopted by the CSW. The new rate of infections between the ages of 15 to 24. And those sex for jobs are pointed as one of the causes. I would like to hear from one of the panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Remember, Kaloku, we had said we're trying to manage the time we don't have. Let's be sharp pointed to what we would want to say. Our number 4.
Thank you very much, Comrade Speaker. I promise you I'll be short as I am short. My name is Makgotso Sokyu. I'm a member of Parliament, National Assembly, yeah. Chair, Speaker, I just want to comment on two issues. Those issues were raised by Deputy Chairperson of the National Assembly, Sis Togo. That's right, yeah. The first one is with regard to strengthening the role of women in Parliament. And you mentioned issues there, budget, when we discuss about having even this very activity that we're having now. I think the only solution that we need to attend to that as members of Parliament, women for that matter, especially us from the ruling party, now that we have a speaker who is in the executive of the ANC, who is the national chair of the ANC, please, for the first time, let's propose that in next term we should have, or we should deploy a woman as a chief whip in Parliament. I know that the last woman that was a chief whip in Parliament, it was only for 6 months. I think it was Sisnos Viwe, some few years ago. Only for 6 months, and then she was redeployed to the ministry. Therefore, I think it's one of the areas that we should look at. Maybe that speaker, who is a woman, will be biased when it comes to issues of women in Parliament. The second issue is the issue that was also mentioned by yourself with regard to the training that is to be afforded to members of the police service, there's no S at the end, on how to deal with cases of violence against women and children. I think we have good laws with regard to that, as you have correctly said that. Even the issues on how to deal with cases of violence and domestic violence against women and children are part of their curriculum at the colleges. I think the problem that we're faced with as a nation is a problem in attitude that we have, which is a societal problems in where we live. So what I was trying to say, or what I'm trying to say, Kuti, we can do whatever we can do. We can have laws, we can have training, but there is no amount of training that we can have if these people don't change their attitudes towards us as women and children when attending to such cases. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you, Deputy Minister Sokyu. Number 5.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm going to be short and to the point. My proposals are that let all departments have a budget for women. And again, the issue of 50-50 needs to be implemented. Because there is a need for a piece of land, I propose that let all women, only women, let us go out and occupy a piece of land so that we can be economically independent. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I move to my left now. I move to my left now. 1, 2, no, yes. Sit up. 2, 3, right at the back, striped top, black and white. That's 3. 4, the blue top, and 5. That's the 5 from this side. That's the 5. Unfortunately, we all would want to have a say, but I've tried to spread.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I think as we agreed yesterday, that this conference is not about us. It's about those we represent. It's about those women that we represent. I was going to propose, Chair, that there's one element that we missed yesterday that we did not talk about, assisting women with their cooperatives. And there's a study that was once undertaken in both Kenya and India, how those women in those countries were assisted and how they have managed to succeed. The second one, Chair, we should revive the women's organizations in our region. If we say we represent women in SADC and in our continent, I think those women's organizations should be revived so that their voices can be heard. Lastly, Chair, there was an identification of an economic system that has elements of corruption. And as this region, as we do our oversight function, we must, as women, talk about how corruption can be our immediate enemy as we address issues that are related with the women's economy, both in our countries and the continent, and our oversight role, as the speaker has indicated. We must be vocal as women because corruption affects us as women, and we should not shy away from talking about it. We should lead in the campaigns that discourage that evil conduct. And thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.
Oh, I am Bulelwa Tunyuso from the Eastern Cape.
Thank you. Number 2.
Ngiyabonga, Honorable Speaker. I only have a few issues that I want to propose.
My number 2 was behind you.
Was not me.
But But I note you. I note you. Number 2.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Ms. Shamin Thakur-Rajbansi, and I'm from KwaZulu-Natal Legislature. I propose that Parliament review 1, maternity benefit regulations, 2, minimum wage for care workers, and 3, sex worker regulations. Secondly, I propose that every department report on the SDG goal programs because all affect women. Thirdly, I propose that reliable data collection on women issues be based on effective indicators adopted by respective departments. Fourthly, I propose that women-specific regulations be strengthened by reviewing gender legislative gaps, for example, Human Trafficking Bill of 2013 in the case of South Africa. Then I propose that the issue of public transport and women's safety be researched in all metros so that bylaws can be initiated to promote safe female public transport, for example, pink transport. I propose that young women leaders programs in all secondary schools and tertiary institutions be started. I then propose that the Department of Labour send out notifications to both the public and the private sector institutions to have sexual harassment policy as well as wellness, worker wellness policies mandatory. And finally, I propose that all political parties that are given constituency funding annually report the percentage of the budget that they allocate towards women development. Thank you.
Thank you. That was 2, 3. No, 3 as I said, stripes.
Yeah, stripes. Thank you very much, Speaker. I will not be long. My focus will be, Speaker, on conference resolutions. Speaker, that when we meet today and take resolutions, I think that the most important thing will be that when we meet again, we are able to go back to our resolutions of conference and take a stock of our achievements and our weaknesses, so that we are even able to say, these departments that we have been talking about in the conference, are they making strides in changing the lives of the women or not? Because I'm worried if we are going to come and talk about the challenges and not go back to our resolutions. We'll keep on talking, and these departments or whether the entities will not implement whatever we have resolved on as the conference. The other thing, Chair, that I would like to propose is that, you know, commissions, Honorable Speaker, I think the commission should be given enough time. Maybe if we are given half day, say in the morning when we get to the conference, we go straight to commissions, we discuss and come with resolutions. And then after that, we go to plenary. Because my challenge is that yesterday when we were dealing in commissions, our time was limited. Hence, other members, I saw the speaker there yesterday was struggling to say those who are from the same commission add. They wanted to add because time was against them when they were in that particular commission. So I propose that next time when we arrange this, we are giving lot, because there are many things that women want to talk about. And we are here to share so that we take resolutions, we learn from one another. Chair, those were my proposals. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you, but you did not tell us who you are.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Buitumelo Muilwa from the Northwest Province. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Muilwa. Our number 4.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Sasekani Manzini from Mpumalanga. I want to agree with the presentation made by Umama Didiza, but I wanted us to take a different approach in terms of education. We agree that education is the way to go, but we can't approach it as if we are starting, it's still 1994. Let us have a skills audit in terms of what is it that we are having currently in terms of qualification of women, so that we are able to advocate for their interests if we know what is it that we are having currently, because I don't believe that we don't have anything at all for us to start now. So that when we start to move and say, let us educate our women, but we do have a audit that tells us this is what we are having currently, and that will inform even the bursaries that we are talking about to be channeled into what we agree that that's where we are lacking. Also, to couple it in terms of the different sectors that we are having, we do have business in construction in all the different sectors. Let us also have a database of saying in Bushbuckridge municipality, these are the women that are in business and these are the grades, so that when you come up with a radical economic transformation in terms of moving them to the grades that are going to participate in all the different sectors, we are able to say this is our program moving forward based on what we are having currently. And also the issue of the women caucus. Let us have desks in the different departments so that we know that these people are responsible for this different department and the transformation that will be informed by the caucus in terms of the monitoring of those different departments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, but you did not tell us. She did.
I did. I said my name is Sasekani Manzini from Mpumalanga.
Oh, my apologies. My apologies, Honorable Manzini. The last one, number 5.
Good morning, Speaker, from my home province. No. I thought you said me.
Number 5.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Michelle Clark. I'm a member of the Provincial Legislature in Gauteng. I also serve on the Community Safety Committee in Gauteng, and we've had an unbelievable plague of domestic violence and murders against women, in particularly in the last year in the province. Our stats are alarming. And you look at stats like, for example, Soweto Police Station, where sexual offence crimes were reported over the last 2 years, 500 of them, where there's only been 1 conviction. So we have done a best case study, because in the Western Cape, what they've done is they have used law students and placed them at police stations in order to do case studies to see that the intelligence is in line with these case studies, so that when cases go to court in terms of violence against women and children, that we have a good outcome. Gauteng is going to be implementing the exact same process, because we find that it's very beneficial in terms of watching over the behavior of policemen at police stations, how they treat women when they come in terms of domestic violence, and that these cases are taken seriously and women are not just turned away and told they must go back and sort out their own domestic issues with their husbands. I would really like to see that from a national point of view, we actually instill legislation that we do this across the country, so that we can make a real difference in terms of women that are going to police stations, reporting these crimes and not being taken seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's 10 questions, or contribution from 10 participants. It's not questions, really. It's inputs. I'm tempted to take a second round, provided you sacrifice your tea. Anyone who wants to go for tea will quietly go outside, grab tea, and come back. I'm back. I had noted 1, 2, 3, 4. The lady, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. You. The lady with gray and red. The trouble with red today is putting me in serious trouble because when I say black and red, then there's a whole host of people with black and red. We said 1, 2, 3, 4. One more. Iman. Hold on. 5 at the back there. From the commission. 5. I'll take another 5 this side. 1 right in front. 2 at the end. 3, the red top. 3. 3, the red top, yeah. 4, okay, 4. And a young person right at the back, 5. That's the 5, eh? Can I then?
Point of order.
Can I then appeal?
Sorry, Ncane Sihlalo. Ngifuna ukwazi ukuthi mina ngibalile.
No, dear.
Because
ungangincedisa ngohlala phansi mama.
Cha, bengifuna ukwazi waphela kade siphakamisile ngapha. Ngaqalwa ngasibiza.
Mamo. Members. Andiqhelanga ke le environment yothi.
No, I'm just asking nicely.
Hayi mama yima ndisalungisa aba bangxolayo.
Yeah.
Ndisalungisa bona ukuba mna ndiqhelanga xa kuxoxwa abantu abaxoxa bonke ngexesha elinye. Ngoba loo nto yenza ingxuba kaxaka. Okwangoku ndisaceliwe ukuba niqhube. Ndiyacela ke nindiyeke nalo phawa ningayixuthi. Mamo, zininzi izandla mos apha endlini. Iman andithandi lento yokuncediswa. Mamo, izandla zininzi apha endlini. Xa singazikhomba zonke angeke sikwazi ukuphuma. Iyo ke loo nto ndingakwazanga kule game ndijonga ukunaba kwendlu. Enkosi ke mama.
Ngiyabonga Sihlalo. But what you did now, it is wrong. Because naqala thina ithina sisalile soba u3 waze wathi wena ikupho ngcono uthi ungayiwe etiyeni kunoma savuma. Because njoba sila kunezinto ezibalekile esifuna ukuyiraise. We are not coming to play. And leli lokhuzana le conference ayihlali njalo. Ongenani mangabe nazi ukuthi anizukuba nazi ikhathi nathi. Kofuna nivele ningayilethi. Thina sisebenza kubantu phansi. Kunezinto ezibalekile la siphethe.
Enkosi ma. Number 1.
Thank you very much, Speaker. My name is Lindwe Masego. I'm the member of the National Assembly and chairperson of the CPA Africa region. I would like firstly to welcome and thank the presentations from the 3 presenters, and merci beaucoup pour votre presentation, Mademoiselle. Thank you. Mine, I'll be short, as you said. I think the issue of us meeting and engaging, including men, in our workshops is very important, because then it will ensure that we conscientize them and they understand what the wrongs that you're talking about here, about them. Then they must be part of that solution, because we complain about them doing things to us and yet we're not telling them direct. We're telling ourselves about our discomfort about them. The second one is the engagement. Honorable Didiza, Angela, in the CPA, she's known as Angela. Angela, the engagement of political parties, and I think the Women's Caucus, what we need to do is to call
secretary generals or general secretaries of political parties represented, and even going beyond to those maybe that are not represented, to tell us about the policies. But you should, that Women's Caucus, part of its agenda must be to call them to give us their plans so that you can oversight those political parties. And lastly, Chair, is that the issue of the budgets, we're supposed to ask relevant questions when departments, ministers present the budgets, and a budget that excludes a budget for women must be rejected. And when you look at those budgets, it mustn't be for cleaning and catering that is allocated to women. Even construction and everything, those big budgets must be that. But it is also our responsibility to exercise oversight and, as I said, ask relevant questions. And the issue of that budget for women and gender must be a standard agenda on the committee agenda. Thank you very much. And thank you. Number 2.
Good morning, I'm Fatima Shabuddin. I represent civil society in this conference. I'd like to make a proposal that we build a formal bridge between the Women's Caucus in Parliament and the South African women's movement in civil society. We often struggle to access women in Parliament to influence and agree on a shared agenda. I think there are many things that we don't agree on, but if we could, in that structured engagement, agree on the things that we push for together, we could achieve much more than we are right now. So my suggestion is that we do something like twice a year, a formal engagement between the Women's Caucus in Parliament and women's movement, civil society in South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3.
I am Santibai Hanoomanjee, Speaker of the Parliament of Mauritius. Yesterday, there was one participant who spoke on domestic violence and who said that she's been here, she's been working on this, and we've all been working on domestic violence for 27 years, and we are still at the same point. And that she asked that something new be proposed. So my proposal is that since we are looking at domestic violence and we don't have empirical statistics, evidence on perpetrators, why don't our respective caucuses engage universities to have an in-depth study on the profiling, on the profile of perpetrators from childhood to manhood. And we would thus have facts which could explain as to the attitude of these people. This would constitute, I believe, empirical evidence and valuable information on why the perpetrators have acted as they would. And I think that our respective caucuses could engage universities in our respective countries to do this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Number 4.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chair. It's Honorable Devina Boyga from Mauritius, CWP representative. Madam Chair, as rightly pointed since yesterday, any job is a woman job, right? And work is rapidly transforming, ending occupational segmentation must be part of the shift. As we have been discussing since yesterday regarding technology and women and technology and the greening of economies provide new opportunities for women in the world of work. But the gap needs to be closed, with women overrepresented in low-paid jobs and underrepresented in leadership position and in science and technology. Okay? Gender barriers in work are embedded in discriminatory laws, social norms, and policies. Trade policy may take advantage, as they are already taking advantage of cheap female workforce. For instance, fiscal policy may limit spending on services that could help women better balance work and family. What is my proposal is to take an urgent policy action to eliminate the barriers that discriminate women against women workers. Initially, as it is, provide education and training for women that open new opportunities for women in the changing world when we say technology and greening of the economies. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Number 5.
Thanks, Chairperson. My name is Nondumi Somapazi. I'm from the Commission for Gender Equality. Firstly, Chair, we would like to add on the presentation by South Africa that we had a proposal to revive gender-based violence coordinating structure at national level, so that the structure could come up with a clear program, especially relating to the National Action Plan. And also this structure should have dedicated funding and also dedicated human resource to coordinate the issue of gender-based violence in the country. Secondly, Chair, we also propose that the legislation relating to the issue of sexual offenses, especially on the government officials and private sector, should be tightened, so that you don't commit a sexual offense and be appointed, you resign and go and be appointed in another department, in a senior position, in another department, or alternatively, even the political parties, they take you and put you in a political list, and you become a political leader. From an employee, you commit a gender-based violence offense, and then they are taken and be put in a position of being an employer in the institution. So we need to review our legislation and tighten that. If you commit any gender-based violence in your employment, you must not be allowed to be appointed in a blacklisted, to be appointed in any other position, and even the political parties must not allow to put you on the PR list. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Shall I request that those other speakers who had issues to propose or to raise, you are still welcome to jot that down. Our panelists will share your inputs so that your input that you would have wanted to do is not lost. It's also captured in the manner of a written submission. We now move to our number 1 on the left-hand side. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Thokozile Makakula from Gauteng, a member at the legislature. I think since yesterday we've been talking about, in terms of land, of allocation of 1 hectare, 1 woman allocation. For us to achieve that, I think there are laws which sometimes they discriminate against women, or women are most affectedly by that law. The law of saying that before you're allocated, you need to have a dependent. We know sometimes we don't make ourselves not to have dependent, but it's a nature. So those women who are, in fact, who qualified, but they don't have a dependent, they don't achieve, or they are not allocated. So they're suffering. That's why maybe some of them, they're still on the street, sleeping under the bridges. So we need to pass a law in this parliament to scrap that policy. Because even if you go to your sister or to your brother and borrow a dependent or a certificate of the dependent, they say it's a duplicate. You also suffer. And most the people who are suffering are women. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Togo. Number 2.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It's me.
Number 2.
It's me. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My name is Didiza from Western Cape Legislature. I think I'm covered by all the speakers, but my problem is we are making proposals without time frames. We need to say as this conference today that if we are saying that we are going to review laws and look at all regulations, that means the national must disseminate in all our provinces, we must do the same thing. And we must also have a time frame to say that in this date and that date and this year, we must know that we are done with that thing. And in the issue of, which was also highlighted here, the issue of boost female entrepreneurship. I'm coming from rural area. I think we must also have a plan to say that in the rural areas, how are we going to boost female entrepreneurs? Hence, Honorable Manzini has also highlighted the issue of databases. We must also say that in the rural areas, we must have a plan to empower those women in rural areas so that they can be part of construction, because we know that in rural areas there are no such things. And I think we said here, we must measure what we treasured. We must have a plan, time frame, so that when we come in our next conference, we can measure what we have treasured, to say that this province 1, 2, 3, 4, what have you done? Where are you now with these things which we are saying as women? We must not just talk and write these things. We must implement these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Western Cape, number 3.
Thank you very much. My name is Randani Munyai from Limpopo Legislature. My input is on the 2 matters. I wanted to put an input that it must be us in this platform as women. We must have one voice speaking against corruption. As women in our various platforms, in our various legislatures, we must speak, have one voice speaking against corruption. And also, I heard Mme Didiza speaking about we proposing that we must have a budget put aside to assist us as women on programs. But again, when we speak of women empowerment and having a budget for our women, we must also put aside a budget to assist women, those unprivileged women in the rural areas, making sure that as much as we'll be meeting as in caucuses in our various institutions, but again, develop a program of going down to the rural areas, and also that budget must also be put aside for unprivileged women. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was 3. Number 4.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Nonhlanhla Khoza from KZN Legislature, Chairperson of Women's Caucus. My proposal is that a sign language be enforced in all police stations to make it easy for women and girls to report rape cases. In fact, a sign language should be taken as an official language. Number 2, I think we need to put more emphasis in saying for gender representation, we need to have a policy which enforce IEC to reject party lists which do not reflect 50%. We need to enforce that one. The other one, in police stations again, there should be this room of hopes. This room of hopes should be established because it makes it friendlier for women and children to report gender violence and rape cases without being intimidated. And the last one, for inclusivity of women in economic transformation, it is just to add, we should have laws which enforce, the economic transformation which should be enforced by law, at least a certain percentage of set-asides should be enforced. Because we need to be very clear. If we say we want 50% or 30%, that's where we are coming from most, and it is doable. We should be clear, very clear. Thank you.
Thank you. That was 4, 5.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Good morning to one and all. My name is Sisanda Masango from KZN, attending Stenger Manor Secondary School in the North Coast of Durban. Senator M. Mutsvangwa, I don't know if I said that right, listed teenage pregnancy as one of the issues that is negative for the change in the world of women's work today. Teenage pregnancy is escalating, and mainly in our townships. And this is because, one of the reasons is because when girls decide to take precautions and prevent, they are ridiculed by the nurses working in the clinics or the hospital. They are ridiculed and are given the stank eye, which is why the teenagers are now scared to take precautions. Some nurses even go as far as phoning the parents and telling them. And some revel in the fact that the Mam Nisi's or Mam Bengu's child is no longer a virgin, and they feel the need to let the whole township know. Nurses should be educated on confidentiality, and very strict measures of discipline should be taken. Because this is the reality, especially from the ground where I come from. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow. That's the benefit of involving them in the spirit of nothing about us without us. Advocate Gawana, you said you are leaving your last shot so that I give back to the panelists. Briefly though, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. You know, as a person that worked at the Continental Body, I just wanted to share something that I have noticed whilst I was there. Many of the international instruments that are adopted by the involvement of the executive. In other words, the ministers and the heads of state. Once these instruments are adopted, depending on the manner in which they become domesticated in a country, the role of parliaments become very critical in terms of the process of ratification. And I think as much as we talk about the non-implementation of international instruments or continental instruments, I think it is important that we know whether these require ratification by our parliaments or whether they automatically become domesticated. Because That will be very critical. The second point that I want to make, and somebody mentioned it, you know, for the longest of time, African women had solidarity during the liberation struggle and post-liberation struggle. We had acquired skills, we had acquired strategies during that time. Why can't we not revive that and build that same solidarity that we had across the continent? So I just thought I should share this and just say thanks very much for having had me here, and I will continue to engage with members of parliament. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Advocate. One other young person wants to speak.
Thank you, Speaker. My name is Lisa Mtwan and I'm from the Eastern Cape. And I just wanted to add that there was a topic about the high increase in femicide, rape, and killing of young girls and women. I thought that in order for us to actually solve this problem, we should not only focus on empowering women only, but also we should let boys know that women are people that should be respected. We should also teach boys to respect women, because now we find that things like media and social media actually indoctrinates boys to think that women are cheap things that should not be respected. So now we even find that in initiation schools, they're taught that they should respect women, but then in most cases that is already too late because they learn at a young age to actually have this disrespect. So actually, having things like mentorship programs after school could actually help to instill that spirit of discipline for young girls and women from the boys. Thank you.
Okay. Let's close it now. The time is 10 to 12, and in terms of the program, we should be summing up. Let's allow our panelists. I'm not sure who wants to go first. Let me allow Senator Mtswanga.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I've noticed that this is a very interesting topic, and I could see the interest in this gallery and this August House that this is a topic which required a little longer than just one morning. But I'll try to just give comments on what I listened to. I want to start with the young people, because I think they are the future of today and future of tomorrow, and future leaders of today and leaders of today and future leaders. I totally agree with you that issues of gender are very close to our hearts as SADC. This is why we've come up with that youth policy. And the youth demographic dividend, it is really something which, as members of parliament, we should seriously look into. The youth are very dynamic, let me put it this way. That's why it is critical to get trained in those IT technology. There is nothing which they don't know. Information moves very, very fast. I was addressing here, my son who is in Toronto already was reading what I was addressing before I even talked to him. And he knew I was here in Cape Town. So we need to work very closely with our youth to make sure that we mentor them, the mentorship as members of parliament, as leaders in our political parties. Let's not elbow out the young people. I've seen it in my political party where somebody has been the chair lady or the treasurer, and they don't want to give space to the younger generation. We are losing out on our legacy if we don't mentor the young people. There has been a policy, we need policies in our political parties where we say in our women's league, 1 in 3 should be a young woman,
so that we carry that legacy. We don't want to lose the young people. I do perfectly agree with you in terms of teenage pregnancies, and I talked about it and how serious we in SADC PF has taken it. That's why we came up with the SADC model law to eradicate early child marriages and also make sure, because there are already young kids who are already in marriage, we said you also want to look at them and empower them. So these are the issues. The issues of teenage pregnancies, we are seriously looking at HIV issues. I wish we had time, and yes, you are right, the need to train the health professionals, to need to train the nurses. It's confidential. It doesn't need to be talked about. We need our healthy and very issues about femicide, rape, which, yes, we need to teach our boys. The solidarity campaign for he for she, which we were told earlier on, we're actually saying, let's bring men on board, our caucuses. There's nothing wrong bringing men who you think they are very supportive to some of your workshops, because you need those men sometimes to push your agenda. We have heard women talking about women empowerment issues, 39 years from CEDAW, so many years from Beijing, and we haven't achieved much. We need men on board. We need the boys in our families to start encouraging their sisters that you can be a lawyer, you can be a doctor, you can do mathematics, you can be a scientist. We need boys to know that there's nothing wrong with their girl sisters. They are all very equal. So we want to start from there. I want to say a little bit about the caucuses. Caucus is a very good platform to work as women. We should never allow the male patriarchal society to continue dividing us. I am the chairperson of the Women Parliamentary Caucus in Zimbabwe, and I must say it has been a very good ground to work above political divide. There are times when we should wear our political jackets. There are times when we should take them off. It's good for us. There is nothing wrong to be a member of ANC. There's nothing wrong to be a member of EFF. We as women, we need to move together when it comes to issues about empowering women. So as members of parliament, that's a good platform. If you work with the civic society, you work with the ministry, don't say because the minister is from a certain political party, I don't think she will organize a conference which will help us. The minister of gender issues, they cut across political divide. Ministers are working for every citizen. And I'm saying if we work together with the civic society, there's a lot of research out there. We have found that as caucuses, if we actually make use of the researches which are being done by women institutions, our debate will be robust in parliament. Because there's nothing as good as knowing your subject. There's nothing as good. When I was trained in school and I did my master's in America, they taught me one thing. When you go up there, know your subject, know what you're talking about, and people will respect you. So there are institutions which have lots and lots of research on women issues. Some of this data which we are complaining that in parliament we don't have, I bet there are some institutions like the civic society we were talking there who have those information piled up in their offices. Talk to them, work with them, and make sure that when you come into this house, you speak with one language. I like the issue of going down to the people. As a caucus, sorry, I don't know if I'm getting my instructions from the floor or from there.
You get your instructions from the chair.
There is another thing which I think as a caucus, I applaud this idea that you have a speaker. You have a speaker who have allowed you to meet as caucus as often and regular as possible. This is another problem in other parliaments where the caucuses don't have enough time to meet. It's important to meet and discuss those issues. When we were talking about those bills which executive bring into parliament, if you can work with UNDP, UN Women, other women institutions, you'll be able to do workshops where they can unpack those bills so that when you come into the house, you know what that bill is all about. And you have that gender lens to say, does it have it? And like I said, the issues, what has been suggested from your report is wonderful. I saw that in Uganda, and it's actually happening. No ministry budget will be passed if it is not gender sensitive. No, and I think that's a very good way to start. The issues of gender-based violence, a lot has been said about gender-based violence, and why is it not stopping? I like the idea which came from the floor. Engage young women lawyers, train them about gender-based violence, and if you can possibly deploy them to police stations to do a study, why is it that that poor woman who has been raped, when they go to police, they are not taken serious? And that way we can deal with that problem as members of parliament. I want to say I have a lot to talk about because this is an issue which is very close to my heart. We can also go down as caucuses without our political jackets and talk to the women out there. Yes, you have been voted from your political party, but when you are in this house, they expect you to deal with their problems across the board as citizens. And so we need to go down to them. Issues of health. A lot of poor women are dying of cancer, cervical cancer. Those are issues which a caucus can go down with to explain what cervical cancer is, and also possibly go down with institutions which can help do cervical cancer screening so that we stop our women dying unnecessarily. These are issues which we can talk about. Early child marriages, public hearings, caucuses can go down, talk to the people. If you want to understand what affects the women, it's always good to go down to the grassroots, to the poor, machonyonyo we call them, those poor places. Go there as members of parliament, as women members of parliament, hear what those women want you to do and say about improving their lives. Corruption, and we say no as women. Let's stand together. When we walk into that parliament, let's ask policy questions. I always tell our members of parliament, we sit to read newspapers about corruption, and yet, as members of parliament, we are there to uphold our constitutions. We are there to monitor all institutions. Why is that institution, if it's a parastatal or it's a ministry or whatever institution it is, why is there corruption and we don't know about it? Why are we allowing, if it's executive, why are we not asking and monitoring and oversight every day so that we bring down corruption? As women, yes, I agree. Let's say no to corruption because that will impede. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Mutsangwa. And Mme Yacouba.
Merci, Présidente Modératrice. Même si la vice-présidente du Parlement du SADC, je pense qu'elle a tout ramassé. Nous avons enregistré beaucoup de contributions, mais je voudrais surtout insister sur le cadre de suivi. Je pense que c'est la contribution d'une des participantes ici qui a dit que c'est important de prendre des résolutions, mais c'est aussi important que quand on se retrouve, qu'on essaie de voir qu'est-ce qu'on a fait de la mise en œuvre des résolutions. Donc je pense que c'est important, au-delà du plan d'action qui va être dressé et à la sortie de cette rencontre, qu'il y ait aussi un comité qui va suivre et au besoin, à l'occasion d'une autre rencontre, qu'on puisse faire le point de ce qui a été fait. Un autre aspect important, c'est vraiment le lien entre le travail des parlementaires et leur structure de base, notamment les partis politiques. Le parti politique constitue une base. Quand je prends l'expérience qui se passe au niveau de mon pays, une fois qu'on est ministre, une fois qu'on est député, on pense qu'on a fini avec le parti et pendant toute la session, on a une...
The whole session, there is a breakup with the structure of the political party, and I think that it's through the political parts that we can come and sow whatever that we had to engage. It's through that political parts that we can come and look for the supports necessary during the assembly. It's during that political part that we can engage the basics, so that it's very important to maintain that link that we have the political part, so that we can create massive necessary connection with other structure, especially the civil society and men, because it's not by remaining between women that we will be strengthened. Yes, we can be strengthened, we can be strong, but we still have much results with men on our side. That the campaign that was it was through the political structure that we had first to search for it before to go beyond the other structure. The other important structure, the women agenda needs to be taken in consideration. The network of women at the level of the parliament, there are cases that should make you forget your respective political part, because it's concerning all women that must engage you despite any other political part, and it's very important to make that solidarity. And solidarity at the level of the parliament would also request, so that that solidarity should go beyond other regional group. It's all together that we will make the development of the continent of Africa, and we need to take example of what you have developed in this place. The plan of action should be a plan, and it will be made in action in the UN. So I would also once again really to thank you that you gave us the opportunity to come and participate in this debate, because as I told you, in Niger we are a small parliament. We salute the fight that is happening at the level of Africa, and we are also learning a lot. But we really need to support each other and to be next to you, so that we can have much results. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mme Yacouba. Mme Didiza.
Thank you very much, Chair. A number of proposals were made, so I won't go to those, because those were additions and proposals of what we can take forward. I also want to say that some of those actually related to South Africa specific. And I think the South African delegation can deal and reflect on them and how they take those forward. Others covered the region and the continent broadly. But there was an issue that was raised by one of the speakers on the income bracket of the civil servants that are at a low end, and whether or not exemptions can be made for them to participate in state tenders. I think yesterday the minister indicated that that would create a conflict of interest, because when you work in government, you will have the opportunity of having detailed information both on the project and the tender concern, and therefore you stand to disadvantage the others that are outside. Probably what we need to look at is that those young women and women who want to exit civil service and then work as entrepreneurs, how they get supported. And I think that's really a thin line that we need to deliberate on, because otherwise it can create a can of worms on how you can really have a buffer between corrupt tendencies, insider trading in terms of information that you had, than those of the public who are outside. The second issue was about caregivers and prior knowledge that they would have acquired in 10 years. I would actually propose firmly that maybe the Department of Labor and Health, the portfolio committees, should look at that and see how it can be actualized if possible, and if there's a need for a bit of training so that the level of those caregivers could be like that of auxiliary nurses, then you need to deal with it in a different category. The other area related to loan sharks and whether these can be regulated. You know, it's a proposal, and I'm sure the team that works on finance, portfolio committee can look at it. But I just want to say, you know, within the Banking Act, you've got an element that allows for village banks or credit unions as they are known in other countries, which actually allow women to pool their resources together and actually loan outside those who require money. I think part of the problem is the margin in terms of the interest that gets charged and then draw people into debt and they are not able to come out of it. The other challenge is where those who are the lenders then confiscate, even though they would say by admission, relevant documents of citizens that then people are not able to then do other things with their identity documents and so on because they are locked into those lenders. And I think that's the reason where, you know, there has been a reluctance to actually allow an open, you know, legality of loan sharks without them being subjected to financial regulations of the country concerned. And I think that's a matter that could be looked into by the portfolio committees, and maybe the women's caucuses can also look at those issues and see what proposals they can make. The other issue, Chair, relates to the land question. I think colleagues or honorable members, I don't think we are diametrically opposed on this issue. Land is an infinite resource, but land is also an economic resource. Probably where we may be differing, it's what is the best way of accessing this land. There was a campaign that women in other provinces started of advocating for 1 hectare, 1 woman. I think when we talk about land grabbing, that's where maybe there will be a challenge because then it's forceful acquisition. But I'm challenging women's caucuses to actually reflect on this issue so that we don't come at it as though we are differing, but it is the mechanism of how we create access to land for women. The other issue that came up relates to a matter that was raised yesterday in plenary of the recognition of the Khoisan community, and also how we deal with our civil servants where they will say they don't fit the profile. I think as women parliamentarians, it's a matter that we need to reflect. I mean, it will be a contradiction for South Africa to say you don't recognize the Khoisan when our own coat of arms represent that community. So I think it's a matter that we need to look at whether is it in law or it's just that civil servants are hiding behind, you know, deliberately in refusing to assist the specific community. One of the issues that related to improved education, it does not discount, Manzini, that women are not educated. But what we're saying is that we need to continuously improve because we've not covered everybody. But I agree with you that maybe we need to do a skills audit. So I don't think they are diametrically opposed. But what we're saying is that we need to continuously ensure that we improve the capabilities of women, but at the same time, take stock of what we have and we can build on. So there is no contradiction on that one. The issue on build a structured engagement between us and civil society, I agree. And I think the different women caucuses would look at how they do that one best. There was a proposal that maybe we must have a structured meeting once or twice a year. The other one relates to the profiling of perpetrators. I think that's a very important proposal that was made by Maya, the Speaker of Mauritius. One of the contributions that came through written notes was even saying maybe we should consider having DNA testing for men at birth, so that blood type yabo siyazi kahle nje zisasuka to ensure that we eliminate, well, that's a proposal that came from the floor, which links to that proposal. The other one related to the policy that must be developed for the electoral commissions. I don't think it related only to South Africa, but across the board, to ensure that when a list is not having 50-50, it can be automatically rejected. There is actually a precedent. Cameroon already has that in their statute. And I think we can look at that and see how it can be applied in various jurisdictions. There was an issue that related to discrimination of women because they don't have dependency, and I'm sure the caucuses can look at that issue further and how we deal with it. But I would like to thank you, honorable members, because really a lot of what you gave us were additions and contributions, not necessarily for us to debate on them. So we will add it. But lastly, from Northwest was, we need to have a plan of action that is measurable. And I'm sure we may not be able to do it now, but we would work on it as documentation and have a reasonable assessment of what we can do. There was a specific proposal from my colleague, Senator, that maybe we need to consider having this forum once a year. And I'm sure the conveners, led by Speaker and other speakers of the region and the continent who are here, could reflect and see how can we actualize that firm proposal for an annual conference of women parliamentarians and women legislators where they can come together and reflect on issues that they need to deal with going forward. Thank you very much, Chair.
Niyavimba. You are quite stingy. That's much better. That's much better. Now, thank you very much to our panelists. I think that the kind of inputs that they gave, as well as your contributions as participants in the meeting, have helped us to be able to combine the whole program of today, actually up to the discussion on the action plan. Because you came up with proposals. All that now is needed is for those proposals to be crafted in a manner that gives timelines and that gives the responsibility, that assigns responsibilities to either institutions or persons. That work can be done outside of conference, and therefore, indeed, you were quite awesome in terms of being precise, in terms of being able to assist conference to manage the lost ground in the morning. But allow me, as I will now prepare to go back to my seat where I belong. It has been quite hot up here. Allow me to appreciate the sense of solidarity and the emphasis on solidarity that has come up. This is one area that as participants and as women in general, we need to harness our abilities to work together in solidarity, especially for programs that seek to emancipate women and to change the quality of lives of women. That has come out quite strongly in the deliberations. The second area that has been quite emphatic, which I think our presenter, Senator Mutsangwa, has helped us. the measure what we treasure and treasure what we measure. I think that catchphrase gives us the conscience and the consciousness to be able to focus on action. That we must set targets, measure those targets that we set, so that we don't come and just talk without saying, we were here with respect to this area, and now we are here. There has been an improvement, or there has been a regression, and therefore help us ourselves to be able to devise other strategies where the strategy is not working, or improve the strategy where it is working. So the measure, what you treasure and treasure what we measure, is going to help us come up with a strategy that talks to outcomes better than outputs. The last one from my side, which has come out quite strongly, is the nothing about us without us, even from our youth. That has triggered in me a sense of, why do we separate the gender-friendly environment from the disabled-friendly environment? Why do we not make that a fight for all of us? Because when the people from the disability sector raise the issues around accessibility and the like, we tend to jump up and down because they really push their way to accessibility. And we act. Why do we not say a gender and disabled friendly work environment? Because I think that will help accelerate the workplace to change for the better for all, both women and disabled. That one is just a thought from me, having been triggered by the nothing without us, nothing about us without us. And it also talks to us working together, because you find women who are disabled suffer even more than men who are disabled. Just a thought. My task here is to thank you for your cooperation. It's done, now and dusted. We are about to get Mme Didiza to take the chair, and from my side, thank you very much. Ria leboga, baya danki, ngiyabonga, enkosi kakhulu.
Thank you very much, Speaker Kivid. Before we start, I'll just ask Honorable Masego to make a 2-minute announcement on the CPA conferences that are going to be held this year. We take advantage of the speakers that are here at the moment. 2 minutes, Honorable Chair of CPA Africa Region.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good morning once again, honorable members. I'm just taking advantage, because most speakers are here, that the youth conference, Africa region, is from the 14th. The date has changed. The notice will be sent. It's from 14 to 17 in Rwanda. And then
September, October?
October. Okay, sorry. 14 to 17 October in Rwanda. The delegation for national branches is 2, young boy and young girl. And then for sub-national, so the provinces, it's 1 delegate. So Mauritius, Swaziland, it's 2, so you send 1 boy, 1 girl. And secondly, the Africa Region Conference is in Imo State in Nigeria from 20 to 25 of October. And the delegation is 2 delegates per branch. And I must just say that we have made strides on the issue of the status. So as Africa Region, we'll be finalizing the issue of the status. And then the Bangladesh, the international conference is 1 to 8 November in Bangladesh, where we have also to elect the chairperson who will take forward the issue of the status. So the Speakers Conference that was held in Nigeria last month, he nominated the Deputy Speaker of Cameroon, Honorable Amelia Lefaka, as the candidate. So we have to popularize her and go in numbers. And lastly is that for the especially the Bangladesh one, we need women delegates also to be there, or delegates that are going to be there. If you know that you're going to leave before the voting, please be an observer rather than a delegate. Thank you very much, Chairperson. You'll do the CWP one. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the CPA. I think the important recommendation to the speakers is that the delegates that they send to this conference, particularly Imo and Bangladesh, should be gender sensitive. So that, we leave what we were just talking about here. And also that we encourage all the speakers, including the subnational branches, to make sure that we vote correctly on the status of CPA. CPA all along has been regarded as a charity organization. There is no way parliaments can be charity. And it can't be governed by charity laws of London as though we were still colonies of Britain. We are not. So that's the reason we are saying that status must change. It must be a multilateral organization with diplomatic status. So I just thought I must explain this status issue. Simultaneously to both conferences, Imo State and Bangladesh, there will be a business session for the Women's Parliamentarian CWP. And CWP Africa Region this year will have to elect its vice chairperson. The notices will be sent for nomination in that regard. Honorable members, we are now coming closer to the end of the session. The team that was working behind the scenes trying to pull together have made a draft declaration. Unfortunately, I'm not sure whether we do have enough copies. I will try and read slowly while they are still working on more of the copies. May I read? Declaration of the International Conference on Women and the Changing World of Work. The International Conference on Women and the Changing World of Work builds upon the reinforces the conference conclusions of the 61st session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. The conference affirms the Sustainable Development Goal 5 targets, which include the ending of all forms of discrimination against women and eliminating all forms of violence against women and girls in both the public and private spheres. The conference reaffirms the Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action and reiterates the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women, as well as other relevant international legal frameworks for realizing gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls, including those that address women's economic empowerment. Conference recognizes that the gender-responsive implementation of the African Union Agenda 2063 for Sustainable Development in Africa is a critical component to facilitating women's economic empowerment. The conference further recognizes the important role played by regional conventions, instruments, and initiatives in the achievement of gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls, including the Protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the Rights of Women in Africa, the SADC Declaration on Gender and Development, and the Solemn Declaration on Gender Equality in Africa. Based on the deliberations of the International Conference on Women and the Changing World of Work, the following conclusions are agreed to: that women's right to work is critical for economic empowerment. This includes the right to decent work and full and productive employment as critical means of implementing the Sustainable Goal 5 on achieving gender equality. That the feminization of poverty is a significant challenge in women's economic empowerment. That transformation of the world of work will help achieve exponential economic growth and assist with ending poverty if women are included. That gender inequalities in labor markets persist and that the pace and scale of transformation towards realizing women's economic empowerment has been unacceptably slow. Parliaments have a critical role to play in overseeing that the pace of change is accelerated. The continued gender gaps in labor force participation and leadership, wages and incomes, occupational segregation, social norms and workplace culture, unequal working conditions, the burden of women's unpaid domestic and care work, and gaps in social protection, and commits to finding ways of addressing these. The conference commits parliaments to oversee gender gaps in labor force participation, wages, incomes, pensions, and social protection as a matter of priority. That access to and effective usage of technology is key to unlocking women's economic potential, ensuring that women and girls are technologically empowered, computer literate, and able to navigate their way on the internet is critical to growing their knowledge base, especially so in the case of rural women and girls. In addition, parliaments need to engage in oversight to ensure that the cost of access to broadband is not exorbitant, thereby excluding the poor from using it for their development. The empowerment of indigenous women as well as the empowerment of rural women and girls is critical to the economic empowerment of women. Structural barriers to women's economic empowerment can be exacerbated in conflict and post-conflict refugee and humanitarian settings. Changing women's lives is not possible without states ensuring that expenditure is planned and monitored from a gender perspective, and that the gendered implications of all government programs are clear. Structural barriers to gender equality impose constraints on women in balancing work and family responsibility, and that these barriers need to be eliminated so as to ensure women's full participation in the world of work. The sharing of family responsibilities creates an enabling family environment for women's economic empowerment and encourages the creation of societies where men and women make significant contribution to home and community, including unpaid care and domestic work. The right to equality and inclusive education is a critical component of narrowing the gender gap in the economy. This includes the need for women and girls to acquire skills in digital fluency and technology. Violence against women in all its forms has serious consequences for the quality of life of women, including the fact that it serves as a major impediment to women's economic empowerment and their social and economic development. Sexual harassment is a significant impediment to women's health and well-being and to their economic advancement. That men and boys must be encouraged to take an active part in and to engage fully as agents and beneficiaries for change in the realization of women's economic empowerment. Civil society organizations and the private sector have a critical role to play as stakeholders and agents in ensuring women's economic empowerment. Based on the above conclusions, the conference encourages parliaments to, 1, effectively oversee poverty alleviation strategies, including addressing the plight of women and girls in situations of extreme poverty. 2, conduct oversight of the integration of government action for women's economic empowerment into national sustainable development, poverty eradication, and sectoral strategies, policies, and action plans at all levels. 3, ensure that appropriate legal frameworks exist for the protection of rights, safety, security of women and girls in conflict, post-conflict, and refugee settings. 4, take action at national, regional, and global level to strengthen normative and legal frameworks for full employment and decent work and the eradication of gender discrimination on the whole. Oversee the maximization of targeted financing to accelerate the achievements of women economic empowerment. Be rigorous in ensuring that gender-responsive budgeting is used as a tool in passing and overseeing government budgets. Encourage legislative reform that seek to address structural barriers that constrain work and family responsibilities of women. Oversee gender-responsive education, policies, and strategies at all levels, including ongoing lifelong learning opportunities for women and girls. Strengthening the capacity, resources, and the authority of national gender equality mechanisms so that they can support and monitor the implementation of action plans. Specifically, parliaments should adequately capacitate, resource, and support the work of women's caucuses in parliament and legislatures. Accelerate reform and initiatives to address violence against women and its impact on the economic and social empowerment through vigorous oversight in relation to violence against women and to ensuring that budgets for expenditure in this regard are ring-fenced. Parliaments should seek to ensure that government budget prioritize care work in relation to violence against women and that this is adequately provided for. Adopting sexual harassment policies that cover all aspects of sexual harassment, including harassment by members of parliament to members of staff. Parliament should set the example of adopting a zero-tolerance approach to sexual harassment. commit to forming partnerships and engaging civil society and the private sector, ensuring their regular and meaningful participation in legislative and oversight processes. Develop national action plans for oversight of the attainment of gender equality insofar as women's economic empowerment is concerned. These should have clear targets and benchmark against which progress should be measured. Further build support and capacitate integrated and coordinated national and regional initiatives to promote gender justice and women's socio-economic empowerment through the established gender machinery. That's the end of the declaration. Honorable members, there are some of the detailed issues that we will put on the action plan arising out of the last discussion. So I just want to assure members that that debate is not lost. We will factor it on the plan of action, which will be circulated to all members who were here and to the speakers of the various parliaments that were invited. Are there any questions, or we agree by acclamation? Now, this brings us to the end of this conference. I will ask Madam Speaker, as a way of saying fare thee well to all of us and thanking you for being so good and vibrant participants of conference, that in her own words, she just says, Siabo. Over to you, Madam Speaker.
Igama lama khosikazi malibongwe, igama lama khosikazi malibongwe, malibongwe
Malibongwe. Igama lamakhosikazi. This is the song that Jessie led us in yesterday when she stood here to address conference. She said, I don't even know what it means. Now, for the benefit of those that don't understand, Malibongwe, let it be praised. What is being praised? Igama lamakhosikazi, the name of the women. So all of us must write it down, those who don't understand the language, so that you take it away with you and you know what it means, and you can always give it the appropriate passion with which Jessie led us yesterday. She's on her way to Malawi if she hasn't already landed there. She left this morning. But because she's the head of the Regional Women's Caucus of the SADC Parliamentary Forum, we will convey to her how the second day of this wonderful conference went. I really just want to say congratulations to all of us women. Asizishayeleni izandla. So we are congratulating ourselves because, you know, women don't normally celebrate themselves. We are too preoccupied with looking after everybody else.
We are very concerned about making sure that everyone is okay, everyone is fine, everyone is healthy. That's us. And we forget to celebrate ourselves. And therefore, I think the more we celebrate ourselves is also the healthier we become ourselves, including psychologically, spiritually, mentally, and in every other way, because really we deserve it. It's not something that we are sitata machans, we deserve it. I don't understand what the world could be without women. I don't even want to imagine. So, makhosikazi, malibongwe igama lenu. Now, two more things I want to just mention in my closing remarks. You know, in 2015, women speakers of the world gathered at the UN. We met ahead of a broader meeting of speakers of parliaments, and that gathering, first the women addressed the issues of the SDGs with a gender lens. We talked about the kinds of issues we talked about in the past 2 days. We also made an input specifically with a gender lens on the draft document on SDGs. We then took that input to the broader meeting of speakers of parliaments around the globe that then finalized Parliament's input, the input of the parliaments of the world into the summit of the heads of states, who then adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, which we now have. Now remember, goal number 5 of the SDGs is about us. It's about the advancement of the agenda of women. It's about ensuring that all those issues that the whole world was mobilized to remember, to focus on, and to pay attention and actually do everything possible in our various member states, that they, in fact, were highlighted at that point to the rest of the world, and to this day, we are supposed to keep an eye, hence the CSW, the Commission on the Status of Women, because the world must be compelled to always consider how far it has gone with the status of women being advanced. And so we here have done our part in the past 2 days to make our input, to also talk about what we are committing to do as part and parcel of that effort of the whole globe to advance the status of women. So I'm reminding us that those SDGs, we also contributed to them. We contributed to them as women leaders, but we also contributed into them as parliamentarians of the world. And when the heads of states of the globe came together and adopted the SDGs, it was with that input. We must never think that we are spectators. We're not spectators. We've always done our part. And so SDG 5 is a particularly focused SDG on us as women. And let's never forget that. Makhosikazi, one of the things that always bedevils these very wonderful ideas that we exchanged in the past 2 days is the issue of resources, budgets. Contributions were made here about how we must deal with that issue. I think a very important one is the one about enlarging, expanding the cake. Expand the cake. This national budget that we always deal with as parliaments every year is just not adequate. And we should apply our minds further on how we are going to expand the cake. And expand it in such a manner that we have a part of it where we are not going with a begging bowl to anyone. We are able to say, no, 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 we worked for this one. This part is something that we have worked for, we have sweated for. So let's all put on our thinking dukes. Okay? Let's put on our thinking caps, dukes, hats, whatever, but let's apply our minds. And let's not be dependent on anybody. God has made us who we are and has given us our hearts, our love. We care for everybody because we are ourselves. That's just our nature. But one thing we must stop is this thing of being dependent, of being victims, of being, you know, all the time we have to be on our knees. No. The time has come for us to be ourselves and really show a part of ourselves that maybe we ourselves still need to discover more. Now, the last question I want to pose to us: how do we take this agenda forward? Because it's true, everyone says, you know, I mean, I was with Minister Shabangu last night at dinner, and she said, Speaker, we must do this thing annually. How? Now, it's easier in the geographic space of a country or a province. At SADC level, because we have a caucus through the SADC Parliamentary Forum that my sister Monica is deputy president of, but beyond that, you know, the issue of resources is always a headache. You have to travel to get together. If we say we want this network to keep together annually, how do we do it? For a start, I think we will need the organizers of this conference to please pull together the report. We now also have a declaration. We will already start talking to whoever was not here, but who is interested in knowing what were we doing here. I saw one gentleman who is an honorable member of parliament. He entered through that door and he very quickly went out through the other door. I wondered whether he was just scared by seeing so many women in one venue. So we have a declaration and it gives us the meat through which we will tell people what we were doing, the value that we got out of being together here. But we have to do certain things. And I think from that same declaration and more that might be reflected by the report, we will be able to channel things to relevant structures in our own parliaments, NGOs, structures that we belong to, that we come from as we came here. But there are ways in which we have to be able to utilize this network better. Someone said we should support one another. What does that mean when we are scattered all over? I guess the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and the women's body of that Commonwealth CPA is one place where I think these women here can find strength in thinking together, taking up issues together. The issue of the status, for instance. I lead the delegation of parliament that goes to the Inter-Parliamentary Union. The CPA delegation is led by my counterpart in the National Council of Provinces. So we report to one another and we share information. In the IPU, we are not in the numbers that you are in, at least with the CWP, CPA, and so on. There are more of you who keep sharing ideas in conferences and being in the same spaces than in our case. But these are questions because we all gain something out of a gathering of this nature. Ladies, it was great being together. Mina, even if I still have the flu, because I don't rest, so it will continue, but ngiphilile. I feel that something has healed just being together. So I think I really owe Madam Didiza a lot of gratitude for having really taken over, as she always does. Ngiyabonga sis. And I want to also thank, there's a woman here in this parliament who is the acting accounting officer at the moment. So in other words, the Parliamentary Service of Parliament is also led by a woman at the moment, while the secretary is on leave. So, and in fact, in her team, I saw only one man, Dr. Gabriel, who's sitting there, who's also done very well. And congratulations, Leon Gabriel. And in his absence, I must also take the opportunity to say our Deputy Speaker, our boy child, has done extremely well. Even last night, he was with us and made us dance, and it was wonderful. So, but let's figure out, and I'll tell you what I have in mind as I'm raising this question. It would be desirable for me for there to be a small body of people emanating from here, even if it's not more than 5 initially, that take the responsibility of figuring out the way forward, of putting meat into what do we mean when we say we want to retain this network. And it's true, I've seen too many wonderful conferences and they just end up being that, a beautiful memory of a wonderful conference. But we are saying we need more than that. We need to actually maintain this network and make sure it assists us. But I'm saying it won't be possible without actually answering the question of resources, of growing the cake. Masiyenzeni makhosikazi. I think let's do it. And I know once women are determined to do something, they do it. So Diabulela makhosikazi. Thank you so much. Malibongwe.
Igama lamakhosikazi.
Igama lamakhosikazi.
Malibongwe. Thank you very much, Speaker, and thank you for the Chief Whips of the National Assembly for having supported that we use this assembly for this conference. Before we close, I would just like to introduce some of the people among us in terms of their responsibility. We have got the members of the steering committee of CWP. I'll ask the Deputy Speaker of Swaziland to stand up. Swaziland at the moment is now the convener of the Southern African region, which includes Swaziland, South Africa, Lesotho, and Namibia. Swaziland is going for their elections in 2018. One of the issues they asked is that if the region can assist them to ensure that they have more women in parliament in Swaziland post-2018 elections. Hlale phansi ma, thank you very much. We've got here Madam Pereira from Mozambique. She is the steering committee member responsible for the coordination of Central Africa region, which includes Mozambique, Botswana, Malawi, and Zambia. We also have got Madam Boyga from Mauritius. She actually is the coordinator of East Africa region of CWP, which includes Mauritius, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Uganda. Thank you. We are just missing one rep from West Africa who apologized, who's responsible for Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, and Sierra Leone. Those are the regions of the Commonwealth. And Madam Speaker, maybe on what you said, we might need to think whether we shouldn't have a small task team that includes CWP, SADC, and, you know, we bring in sub-national branches and NGOs so that we can think through what we are saying about how we can actualize this. And this is agenda number one for all the caucuses when we go back home, to think about the next step. How do we take this issue forward? I want to thank the chairpersons who were moderating, who assisted us in moderating this conference for the work that they did, as well as the panelists who were so good in leading the inputs, and the rapporteurs, as well as our scribes, the secretariat. Madam Speaker, I must say that yesterday I had a glimpse of how we are going to work on the mini plenaries when we start to have them. When Untlangwini was here yesterday and she said, hey, this place is hard. I said, wow, this is a very good training ground for all of us as women across parties, so that indeed, when we reflect on the role of presiding officers, we have an appreciation of how difficult it is. But thank you very much to all of you. Lunch is served, is going to be in Mark's building as well as the old assembly restaurants where we were yesterday. At 2, the buses will be outside for the tours. There are 2 areas, so you will make a choice what you want to do. Shopping. Shopping is also a therapy. But also remember what Mark Lauder said yesterday. Sometimes you just walk around with no money, feeling good, and, you know, pretending that you do have cash. So window shopping is also part of shopping. And the other one is the tour around the city to see Cape Town. Gabriel? So those are the things that we will do. But really, for us in the Speaker's office, we owe our thanks to Mastori, the chairperson of the Women's Caucus in Parliament. Thank you, Mastori. We also want to extend our thanks to your steering committee who have worked with us to make sure that we realize this conference. Thank you, Mamtandi Memela, as the chair of the Women's Portfolio Committee, for also working with the Women's Caucus to make sure that we realize this day today. The House is adjourned.